But such souls resist this damming up. Hence occasionally the banks overflowed, and he became passional, forgot his dignity, was led to believe that whoever said love meant love, was beset with temptation and yielded, until at last his heart was torn to pieces, and his enveloping sphere became so tender and weak that it could not withstand any determined attack therein. And thus he, like thousands more whose spheres are thus invalidated and relaxed, became very sensitive to influences of all sorts and characters, and a ready tool and subject for the exploitations, experiments of disembodied inhabitants of the mental state. He became a medium. Of course, this circumstance and qualification necessarily threw him into the society of those who accept this modern theurgy. In proportion to the self-abandonment and personal abnegation, the degree to which the will is vacated, do such persons become mediums. The more immersed in the theurgic studies and novelties they are, the more they lose themselves, and their value ceases to be individual, but only representative. In the last sense, they inspire a liking in the minds of others, but in the former capacity, none so generous as to really love and pity them. For, being perfect automata, subject to any and all sorts of influences, they become all things by turns, and nothing long. Hence they are accused of inconsistency in everything else, by the very people to serve and amuse and instruct whom they have vacated themselves, and consented tacitly to be drained of the last drop of man and womanhood by harpies and vampires of both sides of the grave. The man before me had been guilty of the supreme folly, and, like many a score of others, had failed to realize that no man or woman can ever be loved alone as the representative or official, but only as man or woman, nor that more than one merges him or himself in an office. The more one sinks individual in the representative, the less there are chances of being either loved or respected. This is one of the reasons why mediums are, as a class, unhappy and discontented, always craving love and sympathy for their own sakes, and never getting either. As mediums and speakers, they have friends and admirers by the hundreds, but let their gift be lost, or themselves be demented or driven into some silly act, and lo, the friends drop off like rain from a roof. Of course, there are those who will deny this, but it is true, nevertheless, and will remain so, until these sensitives learn the lesson of self-conservation and exchange the passive for the active mediumship, the blending for their automacy. Let it be observed that every human being is surrounded with an atmosphere emanating from themselves, and that these enveloping auras are charged by the man or woman with all the qualities, good or bad, pertaining to the individual. Thus, a person's sphere may be full of snakes, figuratively speaking, asps, spiders, toads, and all the manner of foul, vile, and venom-meaning things, while at the same time the speech and external conduct of these same persons may be of the blandest kind. Now, no sensitive can long associate with such without the imminent danger of foul contagion, which, to the extent that it affects them, is insanity. Let one of them be in the company of pure, good, honest, and true, and they will be all the same. Let them mingle with atheists, harmonologists, infidels, free lovers, Catholics, Protestants, philosophers, scientists, Christians, no matter whom, and straightway they become tenicured with the corresponding sentiments and opinions. Nor is this at all, for people from the transmundane worlds are attracted to persons of corresponding sentiments, as well as those who, not so, are yet magnetic sensitives, and most gladly avail themselves to the presence of such, to give forth their opinions on everything in general and nothing in particular. This explains why a certain class of mediums blow hot and cold as the days go by. For scarce an hour in the week are they properly themselves, but nearly all the time are representing somebody else, either in or out of the body, to whose magnetism they have inglorious succumbed. I was speaking of spheres which encompass individuals. They, as all other things in the great harmon head, are rhythmical. Men in their spheres, like musical notes, are of varying quantity and value. Some of whole notes, double notes, halves, eighths, sixteenths, 32nds, 64ths, and so on. The last four sorts are plentiful. The first three are rather scarce. The last can never approach the value of the first, albeit they will reach to the heights and values infinitely beyond where they may have a chance to be at present. But when they reach the point now occupied by notes 1, 2, and 3, these latter will have attained a vastly higher place on the infinite scale. Nor is this all, for the law of physical gravitation has its correspondent in the physical realm. A stone let fall from a height reaches the ground at constantly acceleration rate of speed, which speed is itself determined by the greater or less amount of the density and the weight contained within the given bulk. Thus a cubic inch of cork will be longer on the journey than the corresponding cube of solid steel. And so with the human soul, A, B, and C being more unfolded at the start than E, F, and G, by reason of better antecedents and conditions, will, for all eternity, widen the distance at the first separating them. To return, the human notes and those of spheres, like their correspondents of musical staff and color, are governed by a law of their own. A perfect human society would be perfectly melodious and harmonic, for the reason that every individual would fill his own or her proper sphere to which they are constitutionally fitted and adapted. Illustration. The sphere of A is sympathetical and accordant with and to that of C and E, but not with B and F. The law of thirds and fifths, but these later will accord with other notes, which also A can assimilate perfectly, and thus the entire human scale can affinitize and would, were if it not many uncongenial notes are huddled and jumbled together in that utter distraction and confusion they call society.